I should be playing regardless.
And that's the beauty of our receiver room right now is there's a lot of competition. They have another opportunity today to go prove themselves, to add themselves to the game plan.
I'm going to open up this commentary by giving all New York Giants fans a huge disclaimer. Typically, when I commentate on NFC East rivals, I do my absolute best to remain unbiased, and as a result, I actually eviscerate my favorite team quite consistently. So bear that in mind. I'm going into this with no judgments at all. I'm here to give you a balanced take about the future of your franchise, and I think I've done a good job doing this for each and every division rival of the NFC East. Now, before we get to the content, make sure you drop, like, subscribe, and turn on our notifications to help the channel grow. If you want to go the extra mile to support the YouTube channel, we have a channel membership program and a Patreon account that we drop exclusive content on. Now that we got all that out of the way, work! This video is sponsored by DraftKings. The football season has just kicked off. Teams are already breaking down film, getting ready for their next game. And while teams are working on their game plan, DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner with the NFL, is drawing up a winning play for their brand new customers. All new customers need to do is sign up using promo code Mikerophone and bet $5 on any game before kickoff and receive an additional $200 in free bets if your team wins. That's right, new customers who bet at least $5 on any team to win their next game will get an additional $200 in free bets if their team wins. Plus, with same game parlays, you can combine multiple bets from the same game to give yourself a shot at even bigger winnings all season long. For those in a state where sports betting is not yet available, don't forget about DraftKings Daily Fantasy, where they have been innovating even more ways to win some cash this football season. DraftKings has been around for a while, so you know your funds are safe and can be withdrawn at any time. So download the DraftKings Sportsbook app right now, and when you use my promo code Mikerophone and place a $5 bet on any football game, you can receive $200 in free bets if your team wins. And thank you, DraftKings, for the sponsorship. Mic check 1 2 1 2. What's going on, everybody? Let me tell you something that the New York Giants have that the Dallas Cowboys don't. And I know Cowboys fans might come and burn me at the stake for this, but this is just my perception of the Dallas Cowboys for like maybe the past 10 years. And that's the fact that in the first time since maybe the Tom Coughlin era, the New York Giants have a remarkable head coach that I personally believe in. The Dallas Cowboys coaching has always been their flaw. I've always believed in their talent, but when it's come to their coaching, I mean, Jason Garrett and Mike McCarthy never really did it for me. Fairly conservative play callers, not the greatest game planners. That's just my perception of my favorite team. The New York Giants finally did something that they should have done a very long time ago this past offseason, and that's getting rid of Dave Gettleman, who retired, and bringing in another head coach, which they finally nailed after 5 years of attempting. I mean, from Ben McAdoo to Pat Shurmur to Joe Judge to finally getting themselves a head coach that they could get behind in Brian Daboll. There's no question in my mind that he is a home run, culture-changing hire that is going to absolutely change things for the New York Giants. As a matter of fact, I love what their general manager has done as well. I mean, this past offseason was the very first time in a very long time that I looked at the New York Giants decisions and said, oh, holy shit, they're making good decisions. Kayvon Thibodeau with the number 5 overall pick, a guy that could have potentially went number 1 overall in the 2022 NFL draft. And then they understood the fact that either Ikem Ekwonu or Evan Neal would fall to them with their next draft pick and selected whichever one ended up falling to them, which was Evan Neal. An absolutely phenomenal offseason for the New York Giants. Very logical drafting, a very far contrast from a draft like the 2018 NFL draft, which nothing against rich homie Saquon Barkley. I absolutely love his game. I think he's absolutely electric, but selecting him number 2 overall in the 2018 NFL draft over Quentin Nelson and selecting Will Hernandez with your second round pick when you could have taken Nick Chubb, personally didn't really seem like reasonable drafting and has pretty much been the theme of the Dave Gettleman era in New York. And I even gave them props for holding on to Daniel Jones, but I felt like there was something else going on over there, which we made a video on this in the past on what the New York Giants are probably really trying to do here with Daniel Jones, considering the fact that, I don't know, there weren't really any good quarterbacks in this past year's NFL draft. So I wanted to open up this video by saying, despite the criticisms I'm about to bring and this very dark story I'm going to tell about the one man that is really truly holding back the New York Giants, I really believe in the direction of this franchise. This video is going to touch up on a video that I made a year and a half ago. The New York Giants signed Kenny Golladay. Man, oh man, that take aged like freaking milk, and is probably the greatest example of why these games actually get played and why you can never judge a team that's being assembled on paper. A year and a half ago, the New York Giants clearly were desperate to completely remake their wide receiver core. I mean, they decided to pay Kenny Golladay, the top wide receiver in the 2021 free agency class, a 4-year, $72 million contract with $40 million guaranteed. Now, obviously now we're all laughing at that, but at the time, Kenny Golladay was coming off of 2 1,000+ yard receiving seasons and then suffered an injury in his season after that in 2020, which was enough for a team like the Giants, who were desperate for a true number 1 wide receiver for Daniel Jones. Maybe that'll change everything for him. Hell, it changed everything for Tua with Tyreek Hill this past season. It changed everything for Jalen Hurts with AJ Brown this past season, at least so far. So the reasoning behind going after Kenny Golladay was there. I understood that, but the Giants actually doubled down on this philosophy that they really needed to get Daniel Jones a brand new wide receiver. Because in the NFL draft, at first they targeted Jalen Waddle, but Jalen Waddle was selected way too early by the Miami Dolphins. By then they figured, okay, Jalen Waddle's not available, let's target his Heisman Trophy winning teammate Devontae Smith. Well, unfortunately for the Giants, the Eagles have been missing on wide receivers in the NFL draft for years, and they were sick of it, so much so that they traded up with the Dallas Cowboys, leapfrogged over the New York Giants, and selected Devontae Smith. As a result, the New York Giants traded all the way back to the 20th overall pick in the NFL draft and selected Kadarius Toney. So going into last season, bear in mind, Joe Judge is still the head coach of the New York Giants, things were supposed to at least turn around, at least in regards to the passing game for the New York Giants. They didn't. I'm gonna be honest, it was a horrible season. I mean, it was really freaking bad to be a New York Giants fan last year. In Kenny Galladay's first season with the team, he played in 14 games, was targeted 76 times, had 521 yards receiving, and both him and Kadarius Toney combined for 0 touchdowns. I mean, an absolute bust of a season, especially in regards to the wide receivers. The Giants figured that they had enough, and maybe it was coaching that was the problem, which I'm not going to disagree with that. I think coaching was a huge problem, and they let go of Joe Judge. So coming into this season, it was pretty much Kenny Galladay's and Kadarius Toney's opportunity to tell the Giants that, hey, it was coaching that was the problem, that is not us. And ultimately, it's been very interesting so far because both Kadarius Toney and Kenny Golladay got a very similar treatment thus far. Now, Kadarius Toney has been in trade rumors all off season long, I mean, briefly at the very minimum, whereas Kenny Golladay is pretty much trapped in New York after signing this insane contract that gives him a gigantic cap hit on the New York Giants. We're talking about a cap hit of $21.4 million. So that's like an Amari Cooper sized cap hit from Kenny Golladay. Nobody will want to inherit that for the amount of production that he's given so far. And on top of that, I want to mention that Kenny Golladay has been dealing with an injury as well, so maybe we should be sensitive about that. But the very first clip we saw from Kenny Golladay coming into this season was this clip in training camp. And this is going to be a recurring theme about Kenny Golladay that you're going to see consistently throughout this video. It's not the way he does things, it's the fact that it doesn't seem like he cares when he does mistakes or when he does anything. And you can't really blame effort on an injury at this point. I mean, I don't think I've seen this since the days of Albert Haynesworth. So as a result, maybe Brian Daboll wasn't really convinced about Kenny Galladay's effort for the team. I don't think it was just a result of that clip. He did horrifically this past preseason. I mean, he was memed consistently by New York Giants fans. So all of this resulted in Brian Daboll benching Kenny Golladay this past week against the Carolina Panthers. And this was his reason why.
Yeah, I mean, I told him during the week that we were going to go with Sills. He acted like a pro. I said, be ready to go. Now, does that mean it's going to be that next week? No, because you see what we did from one week to the next. I think we're just evaluating all those guys on a game-by-game basis. And it takes a lot of mental toughness, too. You know, that's not an easy thing to hear, and I appreciate, you know, them being pros. We'll go out there, we'll practice this week. Those guys will compete and try to figure out the best way to utilize them for the next game.
Now, Kenny Galladay's response to this was a little entitled, I'm not going to lie, but I can understand his reasoning here and his logic here, and maybe there's a bit of finger pointing here saying it's not my fault, I'm not getting playing time anyways, because this was Kenny Galladay's response to Brian Daboll.
I should be playing regardless.
Bottom line, if you are not going to play,
do you want to be here? If you are not, if this is going to be your playing time, do you want to be here?
We're not going to get into all that right now. But we're going into week 3. We're going to see how it goes. There's a lot of football left.
There's a whole mess as a result of this, guys. I mean, offensive coordinator and former Philadelphia Eagles backup QB Mike Kafka had to chime in on this.
Yeah, we've been in good communication with Kenny. He's done everything we've asked, to be honest with you. He's done a great job looking at it as a positive, like he wants to be out there. He wants to play and contribute. And I think on a week-to-week basis, like Dave's touched on, we're evaluating those matchups. We're evaluating how to put guys in certain spots. So it might be not a lot one week, a lot more next week, and we'll kind of just go week by week and evaluate. And that's the beauty of our receiver room right now is there's a lot of competition. I've had conversations with Kenny about that, and I feel like we're in a good place with being on the same page with that.
So this tactic, believe it or not, actually worked. I was shocked to see Kenny Golladay got some playing time. The New York Giants decided after benching him for David Sills that Kenny Golladay was going to get the start. So hopefully Kenny Golladay could turn his season around. And look, I'm going to compare Kenny Golladay, who is supposed to be the wide receiver 1, or is the highest paid wide receiver at the very minimum on the New York Giants, to the Cowboys' perceived wide receiver 1. Because there was a lot of mistakes that they both made that were very similar. But there's one gigantic difference between CeeDee Lamb and Kenny Golladay. So if you watched the game last night, there was one play that made every Dallas Cowboys fan cringe like crazy in the beginning of the game. It was something that drove all Cowboys fans insane, and that was this drop by CeeDee Lamb. I mean, you'll never see a more egregious drop by any player that is supposed to be a wide receiver 1 for any team. I mean, this was put right on the money. It could have potentially been a touchdown. It could have potentially been something more, but look at CeeDee's reaction, okay? Clearly he's frustrated. He had a very tough drive. He dropped another pass after that, but his body language is very much so, hey, my bad. I'm going to make up for this. And ultimately he did. You got to give credit where credit's due. I mean, he came back, and when it counted the most, he made one of the most insane catches that I've ever seen him make in his career. I mean, this was Randy Moss on Darrelle Revis-esque nearly, and he did it with his backup QB throwing to him. So you got to give credit to CeeDee Lamb where it's due. And as a result, Cowboys fans kind of forgot about the miscue early on. Now, when you compare that to Kenny Golladay, he had 2 plays that were major drops in this game. The first one came on 4th and 2. The significance of this play is if the catch would have been made, it would have put the New York Giants in field goal range, and it would have given them an opportunity to tie the game going into halftime against the Dallas Cowboys. The Cowboys defensive back on the play is thinking it's all him. I mean, you could blame the play as well, but for the most part, that was a very catchable throw. And ultimately, Golladay just got up and walked off the field. The second time where Golladay was called upon was on 3rd and 14, and this is probably the biggest issue that all Giants fans have with him. You see, right over here, Daniel Jones drops back, fires a pass to Golladay, who literally has it in his hands and drops it. But here's the thing that drives Giants fans the craziest. There's no emotion. Just him walking off the field. And then when he goes back to his bench, you don't see any slamming of his helmet. He just puts it back up and is relaxed, going back to the bench, sitting down, acting like, okay, it is what it is. So it's not the fact that Kenny Golladay isn't performing. It just seems like there's a gigantic lack of effort from him as well. And the worst part for the New York Giants at this point is, what are you supposed to do with him? You can't trade him, because if you trade him, no one's going to want him. You can't cut him either. So the New York Giants are essentially stuck in this situation. Now that Sterling Shepard is out with an ACL injury, you might see Galladay's role get elevated. You might see Kadarius Toney's role get elevated. Needless to say, Golladay is going to be a member of the New York Giants at the very minimum until 2024. That's when his cap hit disappears. So you might be stuck with one of the worst contracts in the NFL for another 2 years. And this year just started, so technically another 3 years. Let me know in the comment section down below what you guys think about all this, man. Aside from that, I'm your boy Mike, and I'm dropping our mic until our next upload.